My name is Dr. Jeremy London. I'm a board-certified cardiovascular surgeon, and I've been in clinical practice for the last 25 years. Today's conversation is about something deceptively simple. Not what to eat, but how to eat. Now, I'm not a nutritionist, but I have spent a lot of time studying nutrition. We're not going to talk about specific diets, but I want to give you an idea of how to shop really in any grocery store, from the highest end grocery store all the way down to a convenience store, because that's what we're all exposed to on a day-to-day basis, or we're traveling, or we may have limited options. And I really enjoy talking about nutrition because it's so emotional for many people. It's like having a political or a religious conversation many times. And look, it's really important, so I respect that. But when it really comes down to it, nutrition is based on some very simple and foundational facts. And our bodies basically run on proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. However you may choose to create those ratios for yourself, that is a personal decision, but that's the basis of our physiology. Now, clearly, the quality of food that you eat and the micronutrients that you take in are certainly important, but really all of those things are nuance, personal preference, and personalization. And what I want to try to do here is help you set guardrails for yourself. And then within those guardrails, understand that it's the small, repeatable steps that allow you to clarify the contours of your nutritional choices so that you can create a plan that's right for you and your family. And this all starts in a foundational place that we're very familiar with, the grocery store. We'll get back to the podcast in a minute. We want to thank today's sponsor, Manukora. Manukora makes the best honey on the planet. Manukora's raw, glyphosate-free honey is exclusively harvested from the Manuka tree in New Zealand. What's the difference between regular honey and Manuka honey? Well, Manuka honey offers 3 times the antioxidants as regular honey. Manuka honey contains MgO, or methylglyoxal, which is an antibacterial compound. The higher the MgO content, the higher the concentration of beneficial bioactives. Manukora's honey is rich in high levels of antioxidants and prebiotics, which support digestion, gut health, and immunity. Each batch is third-party tested to ensure the highest level of purity. My favorite part is that it tastes amazing. It is hands down the best honey I have ever tried. I enjoy mixing Manuka honey in plain Greek yogurt, on a banana on the go, or even in a shot of espresso as an awesome pre-workout. If you want to taste the difference for yourself, go to manukora.com/London to get 31% off plus $25 in free gifts with the starter kit. That's manukora.com/London, or click the link in the description. Now, let's get back to the podcast. So let's start with the first, and I think the simplest guardrail, and that is make a list before you go to the grocery store. Well, if you walk into the grocery store without a plan, you get distracted by the marketing. You know, the candy at the checkout line is not a mistake. So you want to make sure that you have a plan so that you can stay on track. And it does 2 things. One, it allows you to make certain that you're following the nutritional guidelines that are right for you, and it prevents you from falling into this land of, oh, that looks good, and suddenly you end up with a grocery cart filled with things that are not in line with healthy choices. And this isn't about restriction. It's about freedom to make really intelligent nutritional choices. Don't think about a list as a negative. Think about it as a positive. Like if you have a budget, that kind of feels restrictive. But if you have a spending plan, then you set out on a positive note to get the things that are meaningful for you. The second principle is to really make an effort to prioritize whole foods over ultra-processed foods. Now, we hear these terms all the time. They're thrown around by a lot of different people. I think we need to take a step back and let's talk about what these actually mean so you can then understand what you're looking for when you get to the store. Whole foods are typically, think about them as how God intended them to be. Single ingredient type of foods. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, meats, etc. They're untampered with. Processed foods are things like, or can be like, frozen foods or milled wheat. And although these things are changed from their original form, they may still be healthy. But you have to look at them closely to see how they've been modified. Processed usually means minimally so. Like apples changed into apple juice would be minimally processed, but still a healthy choice. Be mindful of the sugar intake, but not ultra-processed. Ultra-processed foods are things that have been modified in ways that are going to enhance the experience when you eat it. In other words, you're almost going to have a neurologic response and a physiologic response that makes you want to eat those things more. Things that are going to increase shelf life with preservatives, color additives, and things that then make it more appealing when you see these things on the shelf. Most of this data came out of the early 2000s out of South America called the NOVA conference, where these guidelines were set, where there was an examination of how these industrialized foods or modified foods affected our overall health in comparison to the whole food. One of the other questions that comes up frequently is, should you eat organic or not? Well, first of all, what does organic mean? Well, it typically means that there's no synthetic fertilizers utilized. There are organic herbicides, which some of those can be very close to their synthetic cousins, but there hasn't really been any scientific evidence to show that these foods are healthier. When it comes to fresher, better tasting, organic typically wins out, but remember that organic cookies are still cookies, and just because something's labeled as organic doesn't make it healthy. Now, if it's something that's important to you and you feel better, or it's just a personal preference, absolutely. But understand that the burden of data does not lean towards organic equals healthier at this stage. We'll get back to the podcast in a minute. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Function Health. Taking control of your health starts with understanding your biometrics. I use Function Health to tailor my nutrition and wellness plan. Function offers over 100 plus biomarkers to give you a comprehensive picture of your health at an affordable price. Their advanced testing includes 5 times the standard primary care panel, testing for biomarkers ranging from heart health, hormone status, kidney function, nutrients, and more. Not only will you see which biomarkers are in and out of range, but Function will also analyze each biomarker and offer insights from top doctors in their specialties. Clinicians will contact you promptly if any urgent results arise. Knowing your data is powerful. Function helps you navigate the information and allows you to design a biomarker-driven plan to maximize your health span and lifespan. If you are interested in getting your 100 plus biomarkers, visit www.functionhealth.com/London and you'll receive $100 credit on your membership. That's www.functionhealth.com/London. Check it out. Now let's get back to the podcast. So you have your list made, you're headed to the store, and you have all this information now ready. What do you do when you walk into the doors? The whole foods, what we've decided are the better choices, typically live around the perimeter of the store. That's where your fruits, vegetables, lean meats, fish, things of that nature. In the center of the store, that's where your canned foods and packaged foods typically live. Why does it work this way? Well, those are the shelved foods. It's not the fresh produce, fresh meats. And I love the quote from Dr. Alejandro Younger when he says, the longer the shelf life, the shorter your life. That constantly goes through my mind when I'm in the grocery store, because it's in those items that you can find preservatives, hidden oils, added sugars, things that allow these things to be packaged and stay on the shelf longer. And real food is just not meant to last a long time on the shelf. So maintain the focus of your shopping around the perimeter of the store. For myself and my family, we feel like if we can eat 80% whole foods and 20% in that processed or occasionally even ultra-processed category, we're winning. These are basic guidelines as you're walking through the store, right? Like you try to stay on the outside, but not every item on the outside is healthy, just like not every item on the interior of the store is unhealthy. So how do you know? Read the labels on the food and look for a couple things. First is minimal ingredients. That's always a good place to start. You know, the less ingredients usually means it's simply prepared, which makes it less likely to fall into that ultra-processed category. Beware of misleading marketing. The front of the packages can say things like all natural, which has absolutely no legal implications. It can say whole grains, but it could have 1% whole grains and 99% processed flour. It could say low fat, which means high sugar most of the time. So what you need to realize is that marketing on the front of the package is not your friend. It's the information in the fine print on the back of the package, what's actually in there, that gives you the information that you need to make certain that you know what you're putting in your body. So you've completed your shopping. You've spent most of your time around the external portion, the exterior of the store. You look in your shopping cart and you're really proud because it truly represents your intentional choices. So now you're going to get this food home. And I think that it really highlights the advantages to cooking and eating at home right from the start, because you've chosen the items, you've been thoughtful about the ingredients. So you get home, you're going to make these meals, you know what is in the food that you are going to be eating, which is why myself and my family try to eat the majority of our meals at home, because we can be in control of that. And it makes staying on track with our dietary and our nutritional plan very, very easy. But it can be overwhelming. Life is hectic. I'm busy. My wife is busy. We have children and dogs, and just life gets in the way, and we all have our stuff. And what's worked really well for us, and it's maybe something that you want to consider, is meal prepping. And I know this has a lot of negative connotation for people because they don't want to eat the same thing over and over and over again. I don't either. That idea of meal fatigue is really distasteful for me. So what we do is we separate all of these ingredients that we've chosen at the grocery store, and we try to put them in separate containers so that we can mix and match these things and create variety. Now, we may do a certain variety for 6 months, and then we make a new list. We do our shopping. We have different sets of food, and we create a different level of variety. And this really helps when life gets busy. Our goal here is really to make healthy eating convenient, as opposed to making convenience our excuse for eating poorly. So if we can have these things available, it becomes a safety net, so that when life starts to spin, you've already got the healthy foods immediately available in the fridge and the pantry. So let me try to bring all of this together for you and give you kind of a 25,000-foot view of, number one, why I think this is important, and also why I think this can be such an emotional topic for many people. You know, we internalize 80 to 90% of the outside world through our mouths, through our diets. Our food is truly the building blocks of every cell, every tissue in our bodies, our heart, our brain, etc. And if a farmer looks out onto his crops and all of his crops are unhealthy, where is the first place they look? In the soil. When I sit at the airport and I watch the masses of people go by, I feel like I'm watching unhealthy plants move through the airport. And our soil is our food environment. And the idea here is, to understand that we all have our own instruction manuals. What works for me may not work for you. But to be thoughtful and intentional about your food choices, because it is truly foundational for your entire body. And if you do these things, it'll make a dramatic impact in the health of yourself, your family, and your friends. Make a list. Prioritize whole foods. Read the labels. Cook at home. And if meal prepping works for you, great, give it a try. Because the idea here is figure out how you can take how to eat and figure out what you should eat. This isn't a prescription. It's a foundation for you to create a nutritional plan that makes sense for you and your family. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you have found this informative and instructive. If you enjoy this type of information, we do have a free weekly newsletter that offers very similar topics. Please check it out if you're interested. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow so that you can be notified of future episodes, and you can leave up to a 5-star rating. Thank you so much again for your time. I hope you guys have a great day.